Welcome to another special edition of Sideline Sports, joined by Motor City Madmouth Morganroth. Got a special guest today, Star Boxing's own Harley Heavyhead Burke. Harley 7-0 with 6 knockouts from Yonkers, New York, fighting this Saturday, May 13th at the Paramount, or you can watch it on starboxing.tv. Harley, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So looking over your bio, I see when you were an amateur, you actually did some interning with Star Boxing. What drew you to work with them, and how has the relationship flourished since then?
Really good. I was just a nut back then. So I started boxing around the age of 2006. Really got into the sport around 2008. I started writing about the sport. I had a website. I did videos. I'd interview guys on Facebook. I would message them. So I just got really obsessed with everything, way too much. I was just extreme. I just loved everything about the sport. And then I just began looking out, seeing what local companies were around. I seen Star Boxing was in the Bronx, Morris Park. I was in Yonkers. That's 10 minutes from me. I actually trained at Morris Park Boxing Gym as well, so I was familiar with the area. And then I just reached out, shot them an email asking for an internship my senior year of high school. They got back to me, said come in for a visit. Then I worked 2 events with them, which was just probably the coolest thing I've done. Outside of actually fighting professionally, that was definitely the coolest experience, just getting that up close hand, first experience. And then ever since, it's been good. I had 6 fights down south. I had 1 fight up in Jersey last summer. And then after that, my management reached out and got the deal done. This will be my first fight with them. I love how they do things. They're local. Joe's a New York guy, so I think we're a perfect fit. I'm excited about it.
So, Harley, let me ask you a question. When you talk about the welterweight division, obviously Thomas Hearn started there. I believe, wasn't Hector Camacho a part of it for a while? Did you have any guys that you idolized growing up as you look back at the history of the welterweight division?
I'm up at super middleweight, but I didn't really there's no specific guys. I was a big John Duddy guy, a local Irish guy who was from Derry. He came out here. He was the main guy that really motivated me, and then Kelly Pavlik as well. They were both middleweights, so they're just one class up from welterweight.
All right, well,
but those are the two. Those are the 2 main guys.
Yeah, maybe I misread your bio because I was seeing something differently, but that's okay. Nevertheless, it's just really neat to be able to connect with new fighters, because at a time where UFC is taking center stage nowadays, it's just good that guys like you can keep the boxing name out there, because it's had such a rich history over MMA and UFC.
That's the thing. When I was growing up, when I was a big boxing fan, when I got into my teens around 2013, there were shows in New York every month, several, and there was big crowds. Like I said, when John Duddy fought in New York, he packed out the place. There was a lot of hype. It was in the papers. All my friends would ask me about it. We all talked about it. And since then, that's really died out, and a lot of it's gone to MMA. So I'm really hoping to make a big impact on the boxing scene in New York and become a ticket seller over these next few years. And I know I'm with the right people now with Star Boxing to make that happen. So, yeah.
So you had said you had fought down south. Where were you fighting previously?
South Carolina and North Carolina. That's common, common path guys go on, is they go down south to get fights, because as I said, there's not many in New York anymore. So go down south, build up your record a bit, and then build up a resume essentially, and come up north. So that's what I've done.
How would you compare? I'm sorry, Scott.
I'm sorry, Joe. All right, go ahead.
How would you compare what you see down south compared to what Joe and Tony are doing up here in New York?
It's a whole different circuit. I mean, what Joe does up here is top notch. It's professional as can be. Everything, the way the fights are set up. I was at Joe's last show back in March. Just everything, the DJ, the music. It's a night out. It's the best way I could put it. He's a real promoter. He makes it a night out. So even if you're not into boxing, you'll have a good time. They've got music, the lights, just everything. It's top notch stuff. So down south, it's just, you could be fighting in a gymnasium. There's no lights. It's just real rugged. It's just not. It's way different. So up here, it's top notch. It's a night out is the best way I could put it. It's a good night out.
Very cool. Yeah, Scott.
All right. Let me go back to the question, and I'm just kind of curious. Why have things died down in New York and they're forcing you to go south? Because I know for many, many years, New York was a mecca of boxing. Is it something to do with the licensing and things like that, where they don't want you to do anything right away and you have to go somewhere else?
From what I understand, it's an insurance thing. They had a bad. There was a fight back in 2013 where a guy got badly hurt, and there's big lawsuits and stuff. I think that's what most of it stems from. Um, MMA's had an impact as well. The UFC, certain things they've done, but from what I understand, it's mainly an insurance issue, I think.
So you had said that you looked before you became professional. You did a lot of work as far as studying um, different boxers. You were writing about it. You were interviewing. So when you were doing all that, who did you gravitate towards, and who did you admire most as you kind of made the journey from amateur to professional?
The funny thing about it is I've actually became less of a boxing fan. Like I don't really watch fights that much anymore. So the more I got into it, I mean, I was probably went through like a 6 year period where I was just insane, maybe a bit longer, maybe 8 years. And then it just kind of died out for me. And as I turned pro, I kind of stopped watching boxing, to be completely honest with you. So, I mean, the sport itself, I love fighting. My passion for fighting and training and all that never dipped, but just following the sport day to day. I mean, I used to watch every show. I'd be streaming shows from Japan at like 4 in the morning, stuff like that, like real
Wow.
psychotic stuff. I stopped doing all that. I watched maybe like the Canelo fight was this Saturday. I only watched like 2 rounds of it. I just didn't really care. So the sport itself, I've completely like fallen out of as from a fan's perspective. I just don't really enjoy it. But there wasn't anyone specific. It was John Duddy and Kelly Pavlik early on. Those guys I loved watching. There was a few other Irish guys around here like James Moore. I was more inspired and motivated by like the crowd and like the hype. Like when John Duddy fought over here, it was just everyone talking about it. My first fight I ever went to was Boston. My dad took me out there. I think that was 2007, maybe 2008. You can see me on YouTube with my little flip phone as he's walking by. It's pretty cool. And that's what really got me going, seeing the crowd and stuff like that. And then you see all these great fights over the years. Cotto Margarito was a big one for me that got me going. But after that, after like my first few years in the sport, I've kind of idolizing people and being motivated, inspired by people. That stopped. So it's just kind of like being a bit selfish now, where it's just about me in my career.
Well, so let me ask you, do you feel that boxing is a job to you then? Because it sounds like to me that, when you look at the interest about, obviously we know boxers, Harley, like to promote themselves, but, when I hear some of your comments, I almost wonder, do you feel like it's a job or is it a passion?
Oh no, it's a passion, 100%. I just don't enjoy watching it or following it anymore because I just think the way the sport went, top guys not fighting each other, stuff like that. That's what turned me off it, not the actual sport. So no, it's a job in terms of like the training stuff and you got to show up and all that, but it's fun to me. I love all that. So no, it's a passion. I love it. Fighting is everything to me. I love fighting, but just the following it, like the rankings, I used to be able to tell you the top 15 guys in every division, their records, their last fight, their next fight. I'm just off all of that. I just want to create my own legacy now. I want to bring back what I fell in love with. That's what motivates me. I want to
Well,
bring back big nights, exciting fights, big crowds, loud crowds. That's what I want to bring.
well, that's a great point because thank you very much for segueing my next point. Okay. So, and we talked about this the other day, right, Joe? When you talk about wanting to face the top caliber competition rather than just padding wins. So, do you feel that that's the one thing, Harley, that you believe in your mind that would create some sort of stimulus to you, knowing that you're fighting the best and not worry about padding the record?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's what turns everyone off the sport. There's a lot of padding records. Guys are like 40-0, haven't fought anyone. So listen, you got to do that at the start. You've got to your first few fights, you want to build up a bit and pad the record, so to speak. Then I fought this guy in Jersey last summer who was established. That was like my big step up for me personally. And now this is another step up. And that's what Star Boxing is going to do. They build champions, they build guys up. And it's not an easy path. I got to be ready. But absolutely right. Yeah. Competition will go up and my performance has got to go up with it. So I'm looking forward to that next chapter, which begins on Saturday night.
So we're joined by Harvey Heavyhead Burke, 7-0, 6 knockouts. So I mean, you say you want to bring the crowd into it, and as a guy who loves boxing, nothing gets the crowd more excited than seeing a knockout. I mean, when they go to the scorecards, it's always great when you see a good technical match, but knockouts are what get people going crazy. How are you able to knock out your opponents 6 out of 7 times? Do you have something special that you do, or what's your key?
I think it's genetic. I knew early on I had a pretty hard punch. When I was young, I had a good punch, and I just knew it. And I think that's a huge part of being a professional boxer. Keyword professional, not amateur. You can have success in the amateurs without power, but being a successful professional boxer, you need a punch. You need a power. You've got to be able to get the respect of your opponent. In the amateurs, it's a point system. 3 rounds, you can score light shots and move and in and out. Can't do that in the pros, and that's why I've always wanted to pursue professional boxing. Never really cared about my amateur career that much. It was always about professional boxing, planting your feet, digging down, hard shots. So I knew early on I had that, and that's why I've pursued this. I don't think I would have pursued this if I didn't have a good power, and I think it's just genetic more than anything. There's nothing specific I train or anything. I think it's genetic in my opinion, power.
So I've got two questions. Number one, do you follow NCAA basketball?
I'll watch March Madness a little bit when it's on, but that's about it.
Well, and the reason why I ask you this, Harley, is a lot of the blue bloods like to schedule top caliber opponents earlier to test where they are during the year. So by the time they get to the NCAA, they're tournament ready. So do you feel that you've taken on that mindset as in the boxing industry that you're trying to do that where the NCAA, like the Michigan States and a lot of your bigger programs, are able to take the same idea that you're doing with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to have that mentality in training as well. Sparring, sparring partners, how you're doing in sparring, level of opposition. So absolutely, yeah, that's massive. That's everything. That's what's going to get you ready. And I think the cream will rise to the top. If you're good, you'll be good. It's the cream will rise to the top. So you want to be tested. You don't want to be walking through people. I learned more from my last fight, which went the distance, than I did all my previous 6 fights. So that'll say it all right there. I learned more from that in that 6 rounds than I did the previous 6 fights total.
Did you ever aspire to to be in the Olympics?
Never,
Really?
ever. Yeah, no, the amateur style never appealed to me. Never liked it. I've always liked to kind of plant my feet and dig shots. I like to move. Don't get me wrong. I want to show talent, skill, and box. But no, I never ever. The Golden Gloves I wanted to win, but even that wasn't really like make or break for me. I always had my eyes on professional boxing, no headgear, smaller gloves. That's what I've always craved. That's what I love. I love that.
Do you have like one special combination that, in your mind you can remember through one of your fights that was like, wow, this is what I want to do, and you just took it to your opponent?
Good question. Nothing comes to the top of my head, but I think I've landed some pretty good uppercuts in the past that I've been pretty proud of and enjoyed landing, but nothing specific. I think you got to be two-handed. A lot of guys have one signature punch, but if a guy knows that, he'll avoid that and he can go the other way. So you've got to, I want to have a good left hook, good left to the body. I want to have a good right uppercut, a good jab, a good straight right. So nothing specific. I work on being on two-handed. I can hurt you from either hand. That's a big goal of mine, something I've really put an emphasis on in training.
So boxing is known as the sweet science, and I think it's appropriately named because it's an internal chess game with one fighter going after the other with trainers helping you. Do you feel that sweet science is the appropriate way to classify boxing?
I think so. Yeah. The best way I've put it is like what made me fall in love with it and why I think to this day, I think it's the best sport in the world. I'm a big football fan, like the Jets. I'm a massive football fan. But at the end of the day, like when there's a big boxing fight, I think that's king. It's number one. And to me, the best way I've put it is like, I think it's two souls going at it. You've just got two like belief systems. When two men fight each other, it's just a man's soul versus a man's soul. It's like a belief system versus a belief system. Speed, power, all those things are good, but at the end of the day, it's all about that man's whole belief system versus this other man's belief system, and you just get to see it, soul versus soul, human being versus human being. That's how I best describe it when I'm watching sparring, or if I'm watching a low level boxing fight, high level. That's how I view it. It's the human soul versus the human soul in its rawest form, and that's the best way I can explain it.
Well, I'll tell you, Muhammad Ali was probably the guy that could have explained it well too. As a young boxer, did you ever look at film of Muhammad Ali with the way he mentally approaches things, as well as the fact that when he fought George Foreman, if that wasn't the best fight I've ever seen in terms of intelligence versus power of the rope-a-dope, that to me is exactly what defines boxing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love watching his interviews. His fights, not so much. I don't like watching like black and white. when the quality isn't great. But his interviews and stuff like that, phenomenal, obviously. So yeah, he did it best. The rope and dope, sweet science. Ali was the man.
I like what you said as far as, the one-on-one and everything with that. And I think about, when you talk about great fights in boxing, there's so much hype when you have those top fighters going at each other. When you look at the pay-per-view and everything, you can almost kind of compare it to a Super Bowl when you have two top fighters and it's being promoted because everyone's so excited and wants to see it. So I definitely liked where you look with that. So I'm going to ask you a football question before we let you go. The Jets got Aaron Rodgers. You said you're a Jets fan. You like the move or no?
Oh my God, how could I not? Absolutely. It's about time. People are a little upset about what we gave up in the trade, but I would have given whatever they wanted for that man. It's been too long since we've been watching bad QB play. So I'm over the moon. Every time I'm on Instagram and I see like the highlights of him throwing passes to our receivers, you got to pinch yourself almost. So, oh yeah, this is a big year. Really excited about it.
Well, Harley, we appreciate you taking the time. Again, it's Harley Heavy Hands Burke from Star Boxing. He's fighting this Saturday, May 13th at the Paramount. If you're not in New York and you can't make it, go to starboxing.tv to watch on television. Harley, best of luck to you. Enjoy and do what you do best.
Hey, Harley, it's a pleasure talking to you today. Good luck this weekend, all right?
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.